Hey everybody, it is me, Jesse Martineau of lightscameradad.com. Lights Camera Dad is a blog I run. The name was kind of clever, I know. It came from lights, which obviously is very much involved in photography. I have a camera, and yes, I am a dad. I have 5 children. Yes, 5. It's kind of crazy, and so I'm doing this at nighttime because they're asleep and unable to interrupt me. There they are. I decided that I wanted to let some people into my creative process, specifically editing. And I get a lot of questions about, how I do certain things, and I try to answer all of them. But I thought I'd start making some videos that will hopefully help you become more prolific, is that the right word, with your editing and your workflow. This is how I do it. This isn't how everyone does it. There's probably better ways to do it. If you have those ways, I would love to hear them because I'm always looking for ways to improve what I'm doing. This is just how I'm doing it right now. And so here we go. I'm going to take you into Lightroom. Now, Lightroom is, let's ignore this image for a minute. Lightroom is a program that every single one of my photos goes into. Every single one. Every single one of them is touched in this program. Not everything hits Photoshop. Photoshop's right here. I use that primarily for like a portrait or something if I have to really fix something that Lightroom doesn't let me fix. But Lightroom itself is an amazing, amazing tool. Has great functionality. It's very easy to use once you learn the basics, and it just really helps bring out amazing images. Now, before I hear the people saying you Photoshop your images. Okay, let me explain that every image you see today, well, almost every, pretty much every, has touched some sort of editing program before. The primary reason being is that people shoot in RAW format. RAW format is able to capture way more information than a JPEG would. So in this image right here, I have more information, and I can actually change things like color balance that has already been saved inside of the image. They're, larger images, and so it gives you more control. If you're not shooting in RAW yet, first step is to go to your digital camera, go into the menu, change the settings, the quality settings to RAW. Don't even bother saving a JPEG version. Just shoot in RAW. It is going to change your life. There is a lot of things you can do. Today, as you can see, I was in Banff National Park in Canada. Took some images while I was there. And I did some long exposure images in the middle of the day. Typically, it's not the greatest time to shoot in the middle of the day. But if you can throw a filter in front of your lens, you can actually come up with some pretty cool stuff. This is one of the ones I took. Now, when you first look at this image, it's like, wow, that is very underwhelming. And I agree. Part of my workflow now is to be able to stand where I was standing in this spot, look in this scene, and kind of imagine what the final product could look like. And that's what I try to shoot for now. That comes with obviously thousands and thousands and thousands of frames and many, many hours spent editing to kind of learn what I can do. But today I'm going to take you from, oops, I kind of blew the whole surprise, from this into something more like this. Obviously much more appealing image, kind of what I'm after. So first off, why is this so blue? Well, because I shoot RAW, I can fix that. It's a little more blue than I wanted, but the reason it is I was shooting a long exposure image, and for that I have to put a filter in front of my lens. I have personally the Tiffin 3.0 filter, which is a 10-stop filter, and it's decent for what it is. It was very inexpensive, and I mean, I've taken lots of images with it now, but it kind of makes the image very red not very good looking image. So I have to do some things to kind of balance it out. One of those things is I turn my white balance to very blue. This was more than I needed, but as I'll show you, it worked anyway. So the first thing I do when I look at an image is composition, obviously. This is the one I picked. You can see here that I picked 3 other ones, or took 2 other ones. I picked this third one. I liked it the best. So the first thing I do with these images is I balance them. I mean, the one thing you need to understand is that this line here is called the horizon line. It needs to be straight. I can't explain how many images I see like this, and it just ruins it, guys. We need to learn to straighten our images. Architecture, especially landscapes. I mean, if you're going for something crazy like a Dutch angle, I mean, even I don't really even look that. But if you're going for something like that, fine. But this needs to be straight in this image here. And so you can see, well, look at that. I pretty much nailed it right in. So flatten those things out. It's going to make your images look way more professional. Okay, next thing I work on is my white balance. I like to get a general idea of the whole tone of the image before I start making any individual edits. And so actually just bumping that there, it doesn't look too bad. But a little tool you can use is this white balance the guy. Click it on a white area, and there you go. You kind of get something. I'm going to tweak this a little bit. You can always just add in numbers here. And so something like that is a good start. Then I always scroll down to this area. This is Enable Profile Corrections. This is also going to straighten out the horizon line. Every lens is curved, and so it kind of bubbles. And you can see that in the middle as I flip that over. Hopefully you can notice that. Now, I should mention that this screen recording software I'm using, it's kind of weird, so it's not working 100% the way I want it to. Hopefully I'll be able to figure that out in the future. So you can see that. I'll leave that on. Also, I'm going to turn on chromatic aberration. I can explain what that is later, but it helps clean up these edges. Let's go down to camera calibration. I have been playing with these a lot to see how they're affecting an image, and I really like working with this, especially when I have this filter on that it's kind of hard to control the colors. And so I've been shifting them and learning what works best. Now the thing about Lightroom that's awesome and I love is that all these things are on sliders, so you can see as I shift that through, I can watch what happens. I'm a very visual person, as probably most photographers are, and I like to watch those things kind of unfold in front of me. So that's kind of what I do. I just start to slide through and see what is looking the way I want it to look, and don't touch that one. And if, you can always double click on these things and bring it back to 0 and just kind of see what comes up. So there's something we can start with. You know, you can always come back after and tweak these a little bit more if you need to. So let's scroll back up to the top. This image here is pretty flat at this stage. Let me explain a couple things about what I like to see in an image. Number one, I want an image to be self-explanatory. Let me flip over to the one I finished. I want a person that looks at my photos and I want them to have their own opinion. I want them to think about what it's like to be there. I want them to come up with their own words. I want them to come up with their own story. So why do you write such stupid captions on your photos? Well, there's a reason for that. I just explained that I like people coming up with their own ideas. And so I write something kind of completely off topic. A, because I love to write. B, because I like being funny. And is there a C? Well, you can see what comes up. Oh, that was horrible. I apologize profusely. But I love doing those things, and I love people to look at these and actually kind of create their own story. Not everyone's like that, and that's fine. If you write about your own image and what it was like for you, go for it, because to me personally, the connection between you and me is what I'm really after. And so this is just how I do it. You can do it your own way. But I encourage you to try to create some interaction between you and your audience. So that's kind of my philosophy about why I do this and why I write those ridiculous captions on my photos. Okay, back to editing. So you can see in my other image, I was going for something in the sky because the sky is very flat, minus these clouds. And the front is very flat. Right now, you have to understand is that we're looking at I was standing there in a three-dimensional world, but the image I've captured is two-dimensional. And so we have to somehow create space. I want to stand here and feel like I'm back in that place. And yes, okay, it doesn't quite look like this, but at least with this image, I now feel like I can be drawn into the center of it. There's lines here, there's a line here, and a line here, and it draws me into this mountain. Mountains again, Gandalf. Mountains. I like the mountains, and same with Bilbo. So the sky, I really want to do something with that. So I take my trusty adjustment brush right here. This thing is amazing. You can also use a graduated filter here. It's just a straight line that does this, but I love the control of being able to paint in an area that I can affect and control by itself. Very much like a layer in Photoshop. It works on the same kind of principle. I make layers in Photoshop to have control over a certain part of the image. And what you saw there, hopefully, if the screen recorder worked properly, is that it is now all white. And I can come back over here and change, hopefully you're seeing that too, change what that area looks like. It looks like I missed a little couple spots there, so I'm going to just brush those back in. Now, you don't have to worry too much about painting over top of something else, because you can always hold the Alt key and you paint it out. You just click and drag back over the same way you would on painting it in. You just paint it out and kind of get it off of the areas you don't want it on. Okay, so it's covered. I don't want it that dark though, but I do want to darken it. I'm bringing down the exposure right now, and I'm going to boost the clarity a bit on those. See how it makes the clouds pop out? Now, I'm going to show you something with clarity, and this is my tool tip of the day. Please be careful with this slider right here, the one that says clarity. On other programs, it might say structure, things like that. You boost that up, and oh wow, it looks amazing. No, it doesn't. Nothing should be this prominent. And then usually what happens is people just do this too. And contrast and clarity in a horrific combination of a mess. Don't do that. Please, please, for the love of God, don't do that. Be very careful with this clarity slider. Typically, I only boost it globally, so now it's affecting the whole image, by 15. Just to give it a little edge on everything. But if you boost this too much, you'll see some people's photos and they'll have a picture of a tree or something, and there'll be like a giant glowing halo around that tree. It's because they boosted this thing right up to the top, and we don't want to do that. It looks ridiculous. Back to the brush. Now, to select a brush that you've already been using, you can hover over the little dot and just see what you've selected. See, it's red there. You just click it. Now you're back into editing just this area. You can see that there. Okay, so I'm going to bring that down. I'm going to bump up the contrast a little bit. I don't want to, that clarity slider's kind of mean, so I don't want to do it too much. And really, I'm just using the sliders to really kind of just find something that I like the look of. Another part of editing and photography is that, it is kind of up to you what you want to do. There's things that some people do that I wouldn't do, and it's still great. It's kind of up to you and the style you want to go for. My style is as follows. Although I am tweaking it a little, I change constantly. You should realize that. Like, I'm always trying to figure out new things. For example, the sky being so dark in this image, I've kind of just been playing with it lately to try to see what it does. All right, so there's a darker sky. I don't think it's quite as dark, and the color balance is a little different for this whole image. I'm actually going to bring down the exposure for the whole thing, and I'll show you why in a minute. How much did I do it on the other one? Oh, quite a bit. Just because I wanted to highlight certain areas and kind of lose some of the busyness in the bushes and stuff, because that can always be distracting. So I'm going to go down to this contrast now, back into global, and you can play with the lights. This light slider I really, really like. It really just boosts the contrast a little bit, but it focuses more on kind of the light sources of the image. Very helpful when you're doing aurora borealis photography, the northern lights, which I will of course be doing in the future. And so just bring that up a little bit. Still not really what we're looking for yet, obviously, because we're trying to get to there. So I go back to my brush and I want to make a new, paint in some color on these clouds. Like, wow, that's really white. Yeah, I'm just doing it so I can see where I've painted at this stage. I'm going to dial that down now and kind of see what I can bring out of it here. Alright, so what I've done is added some highlights to these clouds, kind of make them pop a little bit more, just trying to make it a little more deep. So let me just show you what it kind of before and after it was. So there's before. You can see it feels very flat, which is actually how I shoot it. I actually go into my camera settings and dial back things like saturation and contrast to try to make a flat image, because a flatter image is going to help in the editing process. Remember, you're shooting raw, so that information's still there. It's just you're trying to keep everything in the range that you can actually edit on. So there's the first kind of flat image, and then now the clouds are actually starting to come a little bit to life. There's a lot of, sharp edge on this mountain here. Mountains, Gandalf. I'm sorry. But lots of detail there. Now, back to the sky. We're not done here yet. Here's the most tedious part of the whole process of the sky. You see all these little dots? These dots are here's some here, from shooting at a very high aperture. Right there, see, I'm at f20. By the way, this was a 98-second long image. And that's why you need that filter in the middle of the day, because everything would just be white if you didn't have this. So, just over a minute and a half of an image. But, so at f20, any little dust you have on your sensor or even on your lens, and I got a lot inside of my lens right now because I need to get it clean, but it's going to show up. Don't panic, because there's this awesome little tool called spot removal. You just click it. It's easier when you zoom in. I'll let it spin up there. And then you just click, and magically, in a second, there it goes. It disappears. And you do that for every little dot you have on the whole sky. Yes, I know, sometimes there's a lot. But believe me, people, it will bring your professionalism way up, and it will make you look like a schmuck if you leave those dots in there. So take the time, go through this sky image, and or any time you see these things, and just use the little spot removal, and take them all out. So now that I've got those kind of removed, they're not perfect in this one, but when I do an image I'm going to post online, I make sure that I go through with a fine-tooth comb and get rid of all those things. I'll turn up the exposure a bit to make sure I really get them all as well. That helps. So get all those. Now back to editing. I want to start to bring kind of the foreground to help throw to the center of the image, to the mountains. And because that is kind of the focal point. Everything else is kind of drawing me in. You can see it now start to come to life. But and so I just paint again with our awesome little brush, painting in this area. And I'm going to actually add in the other side as well. The whole kind of thing here. I'm doing this very quick just to give you an idea of what I do. So here we go. We got this part selected again, and you can see it highlighted there. That's what's going to be affected in the foreground. I am going to probably leave that there. I'm going to bump the scary clarity button just a hair. Add a little bit of sharpness just to kind of bring out some of the grass and stuff. And bump up the snow a little bit. I want a little more of the snow to kind of tie from back here into here. But not so much that it distracts me too much from looking at the middle. So I'm actually not going to do very much at all. All right. Now, this middle area is very important actually because it is very interesting. And so I'm just going to select this area and really start to play with it. And I love the sliders in this. I can't explain this enough. I love seeing something like that pop and you're like, oh, wow, look at all that stuff. Like there's little sticks and rocks and a lot of little cool things in there. Again, don't go crazy. At first, it looks really cool, but dial it back to see really what it's doing. And so that's too much. You know, somewhere in the middle there, just to give it a little bit. I'm going to bump up the exposure a tiny bit too. You can see that start to come up. Just, I want people to be drawn in. Paint it. Oops, got a little too much there. Get rid of that. I just want to kind of dab it in here. You're kind of like painting a little bit. I mean, I'm not really a painter. You're really just kind of painting, smearing light around on a screen, just to highlight things that you kind of want to stand out, like these little bushes here. Love those little things. There's a little, I just saw it here, this little reflection spot. Put one little drop on there. Try to bring out that reflection a little bit more. There. Yeah, so now we're getting somewhere. Now we're actually getting to a place where you can look at this and be drawn into this front section and then follow up, see this reflection right here, and right into, yes, you guessed it, the mountains. Because that's kind of the focal point of the whole thing. And this little guy over here, this mountain, big guy, big mountain, sorry. Don't want to give him a complex or anything. This mountain here needs a little bit of love. Boom. Boost that up a little bit. Just so you can kind of have some definition in them, some texture. Textures are very, very good when you're doing landscapes. But again, like I mentioned, if you put all this into really sharp texture like you did back here, it is going to look ridiculous. So you don't want to do that. You got to be selective. Now down to this color section. This color section is very handy because every single color has a channel and you can affect just that color. So here's yellow, and it's affected stuff in here and here and here. There it is off, and I like that it brings a little bit of the highlighty stuff out there. See orange? Yeah, and so you can see the orange. Let me do that again. orange all in this area, the little grass there, bump it up a bit, and it just kind of pops it a little bit more. And like, oh, it's little interesting little details all the way through. And these are the kind of things that I really like to kind of bring out in my stuff. So I'm just going to take a couple minutes here and just kind of go through and paint in a little bit more detail. So here we go. I've spent a little bit of time now. I'd probably spend a lot more time to get to, let's see here, this stage. But you can see, we're getting there. I haven't even gone in here and done this. I haven't posted this photo yet, so I'm not quite done with it, but just wanted to show you what it can look like from, kind of this thing that, would terrify me a few years ago if I didn't know how to do this, when I didn't know how to do this stuff, to kind of there. So that's the first introduction into my workflow. And I plan on doing more of these. I actually really liked doing this one, so please head over to my website, lightscameradaddy.com, and subscribe. Just enter your email, and I won't bombard you. I really just post, a couple times a week at the most, and you'll get an email when I make a new post, and that's it. So go there, head over to my social media channels. I have them all. And subscribe and like this video. Thanks a lot. See you soon.